Jerry Rice, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, told Cam Inman of the Bay Area News Group at the American Century Championship Golf Tournament up in Edgewood in Tahoe. He expressed some skepticism about the Niners' ability to contend this year. Obviously, Jerry's a Niner, always going to be a Niner. But he wishes the team had retained more of last season's roster instead of undergoing the big offseason roster overhaul. Here's the quote. He says, "I just feel like we added too many pieces." The reason why I say that is these guys are young guys. And then he goes on to say, "I would have preferred to sort of leave everything like last year, add on to that, and have a chance for this coming year. I'm always going to go Niners no matter what, but we're bringing in so many young players. It's going to take a while for that team to gel. If it doesn't happen this year, then maybe the next couple years." So he says, "I feel like you win championships with defense. Maybe that's why they brought Robert Saleh back. If that defense can get rolling like it did the last couple of years when he was around, I think we have a legitimate chance. The offense is going to take a while to catch up. You want the offense towards the end working on all cylinders. If that happens now, everything is good to go." So it sounds like he's started off kind of pessimistic and now sounds a little bit more optimistic at the end. What's your takeaway there, though? I mean, do you think that, do you agree with Jerry? Did the Niners make too many changes, wholesale changes, especially on their defensive front seven, to realistically contend?
Look, I'll never disrespect the GOAT. Jerry Rice is the best wide receiver of all time, and I don't think that anybody is ever going to surpass him, especially with the era that he was playing in where teams didn't air it out all that much, yet it didn't keep him from putting up incredible production for such a long period of time. And it's interesting that he said that. He came into the league in 1985 when the Niners drafted him. The NFL salary cap was not introduced until the 1994 season. So he saw a pretty big change in the business growth of the NFL and then the landscape of the league changing. He came into the league when the salary cap wasn't a thing. And then once the salary cap was implemented, he was still in the NFL for a very, very long time. But I think the salary cap and the Niners specifically, their financial situation is a big reason why they made some of the changes that they made. And I'm not going to express concern over this Niners roster outside of a couple of spots, right? I think they could be deeper along the defensive line. I have some concerns at the linebacker spot. Cornerback depth is a little bit of an issue. I've always expressed my concerns with the offensive line. But this is still one of the most talented teams in the entire NFL. And am I going to chalk it up as a concern? I'm not as much going to go concerned as I am. There are just a lot of unknowns. And the big unknown is really on the defensive side of the ball because there are 5 rookies in Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Nick Martin, and Upton Stout who could become starters. And if they're not starters, they are going to have to play significant roles. And so that is a big ask to have 5 rookies playing marquee roles on your football team for a team that has playoff aspirations. But I think that Robert Saleh is going to help this defensive unit tremendously. I've said this multiple times, and this is a big reason why I was beating the drum for the Niners to bring Saleh back. That is one of the best additions that any team made this offseason. And I'm talking trades, free agency, and draft picks. He's one of the top defensive minds in football, but also factor in how much of an upgrade Saleh is as compared to Nick Sorensen. And so the coaching on that unit is going to be so much better. And I think that he's going to help the rookies with that learning curve, which could be steep, admittedly. I think that the special teams unit under Brant Boyer is going to be much improved. They were the worst unit in the NFL last year. And I think that Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy can bounce back after a down 2024. So, number one, this Niners team still, with all of these pieces that they lost, are one of the most talented teams in the NFL. They have one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL. And on offense, with how frustrating they were still 4th in total offense last year. You get Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey back healthy, and with this new Brandon Ayuk update that he's ahead of schedule, I think this Niners offense, if the defense does struggle a little bit, especially early in the year, can help to carry some of the water for that defensive unit. So a lot of unknowns with this team. There is no doubt about it. But for Jerry Rice to say, I'm not sure if they can make the playoffs, I think that they are a playoff team in 2025.
Yeah, I kind of think they're a playoff team. I mean, Vegas thinks they're a playoff team.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know what you want to make of that, but interesting. So George Kittle was talking about Mikael Williams. Kev is referencing it here in the title. Kittle noted that the rookie told teammates that he finds it disrespectful when tight ends are asked to block him, an area in which Kittle enjoys and thrives. Kittle says, I was like, welcome to the NFL, baby. You're going to see something different in these practices. I promise you that, Kittle said with a grin. What do you make of that? What do you make of Kittle's comments on Mikael Williams? I'm not even sure if those are the comments that Kev's referring to here.
Well, we know that George Kittle is always going to have a great personality. He's always going to back his teammates. He is always up for a challenge. I want to give a shout out to Nick Wagner, who covers the Niners for ESPN. He just put up an article on ESPN.com about how Kittle takes care of his body, how he's really striving for longevity, how he loves the game of football, wants to play for so long. And part of that is Kittle's spirit, right? But part of Kittle's desire to be great for a long period of time and go down as one of the best tight ends in the history of football, it's his competitiveness. George Kittle will never back down from a challenge. And so in training camp, if he has to block Mikael Williams, whether it's a straight up block in a pass set, it's in the run game, or he has to chip him, he's not going to back away from that challenge. And I guarantee you, even though Mikael Williams is a lot bigger, even though he has an NFL-ready body, even though he has that long wingspan and he can bulldoze offensive linemen, George Kittle will not back down. And I imagine that Kittle's going to look to give him a welcome to the NFL moment, because when the pads get popping during training camp, it doesn't really matter what jersey you're wearing. Guys are fighting for jobs. Guys are looking to improve. Guys are looking to make statements. And that's part of the reason why Kittle has gone on to have such a great career. Wagner in that article was talking about how during OTAs, everybody was going to the locker room and everybody's excited to enjoy the rest of their summers before the NFL season ramps up, before they're supposed to be back for training camp, which for veterans is July 22nd. What's Kittle doing after those OTA practices? Hitting the jugs machine. I mean, the guy just has a relentless pursuit of greatness, and that's why he's a special one-of-one player.
What kind of grade would you give this offseason? And is there a move that they made that you would endorse? Is there a move that they made that you would reverse?
ESPN gave him an A-. Seth Walder handed out grades for all teams in the NFL. I don't think I'm going to go that high. I think I'm going to go like B. I think B is pretty good. I think they could have done more to improve the offensive line. I've been saying that over the last few years. It just is what it is at this point. They're not going to listen to me. Kyle Shanahan, a former wide receiver, and John Lynch, a former safety, have their own philosophy. But I think that they could have done more along the offensive line. But look, my favorite move, bringing back Robert Saleh. I said it a little bit earlier. Like, that is such a huge move for San Francisco. He's one of the top defensive minds in the entire NFL. The Jets' defenses were never a problem when he was the head coach there. They were some of the highest graded and highest ranked defenses in the NFL. I thought what was telling, the Jets were top 5 in EPA per play last year as a defense. Saleh gets fired. They dropped to 30th after that with Jeff Ulbrich as their defensive play caller. So that goes to show you the impact that Saleh had. He did a great job of maximizing players like Bryce Huff, other players who he brought the best out of. He put players in a position to succeed. And I just don't think that you're going to see a lack of player development, scheme breakdowns, dubious play calls, the Niners being caught off guard, and them just being confused and floundered by some of the top offensive minds in football, even with a lack of elite personnel. And so I think Saleh helps this team so much. I really like what the Niners did in the draft. I think this draft class could end up being a great one. In free agency, they didn't really make any marquee moves, but I'll tell you this, in the trade market, That Bryce Huff trade, I think, is going to be a great one for the Niners. They gave up a fifth-round pick, which can become a fourth. They're giving him under $8 million this year. 2 years ago, with Saleh, who knows how to use him, he had 10 sacks and 67 pressures. As far as some of the analytics go with pass rush win rate, he's been one of the highest-graded players in the NFL the last few years, and there is something to be said that he goes to Philly. Vic Fangio runs a 3-4. He tried to use Huff as a stand-up pass rusher. He was not a scheme fit. He's a scheme fit for a 4-3 wide 9 because he's great with his hand in the dirt. That allows him to get that fast get off and get after the quarterback to pin his ears back in doing so. And I just think that he is going to have a 7 to 10 sack season. And if you're paying him under $8 million for that type of production, I think that's well worth the trade.
I'll give him a B minus. They didn't spend in the undrafted market for no reason at all. That was just stupid. And that was short sighted. Probably came down from ownership. Really ill advised. Made no sense at all, especially since they had tremendous need. I didn't like the Juszczyk move. I would have much rather have seen them say, "Hey, Garendo, you're our full-time fullback, and we're gonna have an incredible speed at fullback this year." I would have definitely moved on from Juice and his $7 million. I think that's a waste of salary. And the move I love the most is C.J. West. The ones I was excited about was Jordan Watkins, Nick Martin, and C.J. West. Of all of them, I would say C.J. West is my favorite addition of the offseason. I think he's going to be really, really good. So I love that move. The move that I really didn't like at the time was Alfred Collins. And I'm nervous about Alfred Collins. I mean, he hasn't gotten on the field yet. He looks like a ton, but it's like you can look amazing, but if you can't play, so my big concern going into camp is where is the interior pass rush coming from? They didn't have an interior pass rush. They signed Javon Hargrave. They gave him a ton of money. Then they decided he wasn't worth it. They cut him loose, but they don't have any interior pass rushers. Collins is a run defender. West is a run defender. Anderson's a run defender. Kalia Davis, Kevin Givens, and Jordan Elliott is the best that they could muster, I should say, at as a pass rushing force inside. So I don't know where the pass rush. I'm a little nervous about the pass rush. I don't think Mikael Williams is going to produce a ton of pass rush. I don't think they're going to get a ton of pass rush from the interior. And I still think if you said, what is the number one issue with the 49ers, I would say it's lack of pass rush. I still think they don't have enough pass rush.
And that's an issue because you have a thin secondary. And if you can't get a pass rush on the quarterback and that quarterback has all day to survey the field, go through his progressions, and he's feeling clean and not bothered in that pocket, he's going to be able to pick you apart. And I don't really care what quarterback it is. If they have time to throw at the NFL level, if you can't get a pass rush, oftentimes they're going to find success because there's so much talent nowadays at multiple receiver spots, at tight end, and at running back. So that's a concern. I will say with Alfred Collins, I think he played in 64 of 65 games when he was at Texas. So despite him being 6'5", 330, and a load, he was durable in college. But you are right. Mikael Williams, C.J. West, and Alfred Collins, they all have a pedigree of stopping the run. And that's great because the Niners have been a really bad run defense, and that can really hurt you with teams possessing the ball, wearing your defense down, keeping your offense off the field, which then impacts the flow and rhythm of the offense. They needed to get better there, but you do bring up a good point that the pass rush is lacking from the interior. That's also why I point to the fact that I know he's an edge rusher. I like that trade of Bryce Huff. I think him with Nick Bosa, that's a really good pass rushing combination. He can be that pass rush specialist. And then you can utilize Mikael Williams in that type of hybrid role that we saw from the likes of Arden Key, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, Cleveland Ferrell, where he can play defensive end and defensive tackle in that NASCAR hybrid package.
Are the Niners going to add to their mix between now and training camp? Should they? They have an awful lot of cap room. I mean, they're in an odd spot here. It's like they have a lot of cap room, but Purdy's cap numbers goes up dramatically in 26 and in 28, and I'm sure they want to roll over some of their cap to account for those balloon payments that are headed their way. But, Kittle, Bosa, Warner, Williams, CMC, these are all their greatest players, and they're all in the twilight of their prime, if not the twilight of their careers. And it's like to roll over nearly $50 million of cap room when your five best players are all in their final year of the prime of their career, that doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense to me. Are the Niners too worried about their finances and not going for it enough this year?
Yeah, it's a good point because right now San Francisco has $45.6 million in cap space. That's number 2 in the NFL behind the rebuilding New England Patriots. And if you're trying to take advantage in theory of these players being at the tail end of their primes or their careers, as you mentioned, it would make sense to go all in right now. And there are some players out there who I really like. I think Asante Samuel Jr. would really help this team prior to the emergence of Jason Pinnock and even Richie Grant playing well in the spring. I would like the addition of Justin Simmons, maybe a Julian Blackmon. There aren't a lot of really good offensive linemen out there. Brandon Scherf is a former top 5 overall pick from many years ago. He performed pretty well for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. If you have concerns at left guard with Ben Barch, Connor Colby, and Spencer Burford potentially competing there, then maybe you go after a player like that. I know edge rusher in the free agency market, a player like Zadarius Smith fits the wide 9. You have Jadeveon Clowney out there as well. That could make some sense. But I think part of the Niners thinking here is that they're also eating so much dead money. I think it's over $80 million that they're paying players who are not even on their team in 2025. And so they're eating all that money. They're second in cap space now, but you can also roll that cap space over year. And so if you assess how you perform this year in 2025 and you maintain a large chunk of that cap space, then you roll it over toward next year. You're like, all right, Brock Purdy's contract extension now sets in because this was the final year of his rookie contract in 2025. Now it's time to really put together a team to try to maximize this next window, which I think would be delayed a year. Maybe they can make a trade for a player like Trey Hendrickson. That would occupy a lot of their cap space, but I think that dead money is scaring them off a little bit. Plus, if they roll that cap space over, they'd be locked and loaded to hit free agency and be aggressive spenders next offseason. But you're right. Like the timeline doesn't really fit with how they put this roster together, where yes, you have a lot of young players, but also some of your best players are older players, which would lead you to believe, right, it would make sense that they'd be trying to go all in to try to win a Super Bowl right now in an NFC that I think is pretty wide open too.